Hi, my name is Tyler, and this is the Fox Valley Film Critics. In this episode of the show, we're going to be talking about the next in the lineup of the AFI's Top 100 American Films, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, as well as the newest MCU film, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to the show, brought to you by Groupthink Productions and FVTV. Joining us today for the first time is our new guest, Garrett Smith.
Hello.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you as well.
So, I've seen you on Facebook a lot. Do you do film, or what do you do exactly?
I'm a filmmaker, not a starving one, but I'm a filmmaker. Yeah, so right now I'm finishing up my last year of film school and getting some stuff together. Trying to do some experimenting, trying to push myself creatively.
Cool. Where do you go?
I go to a school called Flashpoint Chicago.
Oh, nice. Same. I went there. So.
I've heard stories. All positive though. All positive. So they like you there.
Don't sue us. But yeah. So I've seen you around, and you talk about films constantly, and I wanted to kind of bring you on to talk about stuff because you seem like an opinionated person. So.
Opinionated, but I don't think my opinion is right. If that makes any sense. I don't think my opinion's the right opinion. I just
is there such thing as a right opinion? Are opinions ever right?
I could say yes, but I'm going to say no to be that person. That seems nice. No, everyone has a valid opinion to themselves. If that makes any sense.
So, first film we're going to be discussing is the next AFI film, which is Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, which is interesting because I was surprised that this of all the Disney films would have ended up at least as high as in the list. I don't know if we actually did Beauty and the Beast on this list or not, but I know we did the remake version of it, but I'm surprised that this of all the Disney films ended up being the one that got this high.
Well, I am a gigantic fan of Snow White.
No, it's fine.
No, what's crazy about it, someone asked me what do you think about Snow White and the Seven Dwarves? And the first thing I said was terrifying. And it terrifies me not because it is scary for children now. I think, especially when the queen turns into a witch, that is nightmare fuel. But what's terrifying is to think back then they could animate something like that, and I think of all the hours that went into it. Walt Disney is a perfectionist, and the part of being a perfectionist is never being perfect, but trying to get there. And I honestly think it's, for that time in that era, it's pretty darn close to perfect.
I believe this was the first fully animated feature?
Yes, it is the first fully animated feature, and it's the first time in history I can think of an actress signing on to do something and not being able to sign on to do anything else, because Walt Disney had the person that plays Snow White not sign on for anything else afterwards. That was part of her contract, was she can't be a public figure after that, because he wanted. And yes, it is awful, but it's just insane. The reason why people know so much about Snow White and think of Snow White only as that, not just Kristen Stewart, but because Snow White has always been that. You can't get away from that persona. It will always be that, always. And I think that's very fascinating because you can look at Belle from Beauty and the Beast, as you mentioned before, and see her as the anime character, but also people can see her as the Emma Watson type. And I know they have similarities, but their looks and the way they act is completely different, in my opinion. In terms of how Belle is this
they're different personas when they're in the two different films.
And I feel for Disney and Snow White, that persona of Snow White, it's all you're gonna get.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they even tried to do a live action remake.
Oh, they never will. I
don't think anything is wholly Disney at this point.
Well, you're right. But I just think it's one of those things where they've already tried remaking Snow White with Snow White and the Huntsman, and then the Huntsman, Winter's War.
But that was just we're doing Lord of the Rings.
I know you're doing Lord of the Rings, but I feel it's one of those things where you can adapt Snow White, yes. But I think if Disney tried to adapt Snow White, it would just, you can't already revolutionize, unless they truly revolutionize filmmaking again with a remake of Snow White, they can't do it. I don't see them doing it. If they did it, it would probably be 50 if they decided to go in that. I would be more surprised if that came out than a live action with quotation marks Robin Hood with like the foxes.
Well, problem is they keep picking when it comes to these live action remakes. It all comes down to how good the original material was. Because when they remake something like Pete's Dragon, it's interesting because the original one was flawed. So when they do that, the new one, it's interesting because they have new places they can go with it.
With David Lowery.
Yeah, but if they just do a remake of an old one that was already perfect, you're not going anywhere with it. You're just adding something that was already perfectly fine. So we can all await the long-awaited remake of Song of the South.
Oh, I actually have a VHS copy. Actually, I had a friend from Brazil give it to me. Like he mailed it to me.
Why did Brazil get it?
I don't know why Brazil, but it's like really gross. Like the thing was like the case was like decayed, and like Uncle Raymond's looked like a son because all the like stuff was like it was. So like but like with Snow White.
Anyway, Snow White.
Snow White is, and then one of the things about it is that it's very pure, in the sense where like the main character, yes, like she's just a nice person, and you can say that's bland, you can say that's underwritten, but that's the appeal of Snow White. She's just this nice person. She is this nice angelic perfection. And what makes her interesting is that the Seven Dwarves all have personalities. And thankfully, the movie, especially when you rewatch it, Snow White is not in there that much. It's mostly the Seven Dwarves who all have 7 distinct personalities. And so these personalities are able to,
they bounce off.
They bounce off each other, and they're also inspired by the goodness of Snow White. And so in a way, Snow White, she always propels the plot forward, which I find interesting. Even when she's, eating eats the apple, that plot is still moving forward to try to save Snow White. And it's one of those things where I still think it's like magical while watching it. Like, and even now, like I get kind of scared watching it. Like, it just gets under my skin.
I was thinking a lot about why this film got on. As I said, we're going through the AFI's top 100 films, and I was wondering why this one got it. And it struck me that I think the reason why is because of the innovation involved with the film in terms of how they would go from skit animation in the 1930s to a full feature film by this point, and seeing a lot of what they were able to come up with to fill a feature film is just fascinating, because obviously the story is essentially perfect from a fairy tale. It's got that 1930s dark fantasy thing to it, so they could acknowledge death in the 1930s.
Well, this is filmed like during like the Great Depression era.
Yeah.
The Great Depression era, and I'm not gonna say children were more mature back then, but they were more accepting of the idea of darker themes.
Because they had to live with death.
Yeah, they had to live with death. They had to live with disappointment. They had to live with like constant imperfection. And you have this, I'm gonna say almost perfect product.
Just punch it.
It's punch it. So sorry, Tom Cruise.
It's okay. No worries.
Yeah, so you have this perfection of animation here that just encapsulates something they've never seen before. I like to think of it, the way I was thinking of it when I was watching it, I was like, it kind of struck me as how when you're a kid and you see Jurassic Park for the first time, and you see that innovation with the dinosaurs, yes, we've seen 3D animation before, but you've never seen it used that way. And I think with Snow White, you've seen animation, but you've never seen it done that way before. And you have these people just being their, minds blown, and then you have this like truly good thing in such a dark time. And I think that has a big effect on like younger viewers. And I think those young people who are now our great grandmothers, great grandfathers, have kept that legend alive of Snow White more so than yes, you can like write 1,000 pieces about how great it is, but it truly affected a generation of people that have kept it going for this long. And I think that it's always stayed in our psyche, and I think that helps a lot with it being on that list, because it never left our zeitgeist.
Sure, it was the innovator for the way Disney would go with the way when they would do future princess films.
Yes.
Yeah, their entire line. But the thing that I kind of noticed was that the way that they got so many fascinating like images on the screen, like you can tell the animation is very much kind of on par with the way they did a lot of animation back then. The character models look like you ever seen Max Fleischer's Superman?
Yes,
those.
yes, it's like
It's got the weird eyes and the doughy kind of facial construction.
It's almost like they're tracing over like a body part, but don't know how to trace it over the body part. So they're trying to get like fluidity, but it's not there yet. Yeah.
But they still capture these amazing shots. Like I remember within the first 5 minutes of the film, there's an amazing shot of Snow White looking down at the well, and it's just the animation. They clearly like drew on the water effects, and I'm just like, wow, that is like, I don't see a lot of stuff like that now that looks that good.
And it comes to Walt Disney being a perfectionist. He thought it's one of those things where you're trying to, like, nowadays people don't try to reinvent the wheel, or they don't, like, we have perfectly good wheels. How do we make a better wheel? And I think when you watch it, like, I don't even know who directed it. That's like the craziest part. Like, I can't name all the animators, but yet Walt Disney's fingers are in every single shot, every single frame. And we did the water effect. I remember like watching it on Blu-ray, and the animation did not look worse. It looked even better. It kind of struck me as like, this is probably what it was like to see it like on the big screen as a kid, like seeing this for the first time, like in that kind of like just clarity. And it's, as you said, it's breathtaking.
That's all the time we have for this segment. Join us for the following segment where we'll be discussing Ant-Man and the Wasp. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to the segment. So now we're at Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is the 20th MCU film.
20th.
Yes, as of... I was surprised they didn't time that for Infinity War, like maybe push back Infinity War to July and then do Ant-Man, because then they could have the 20th film in the Infinity War credits.
20th film?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's what 10 years does to you. It's 2008 to 2018, so.
It feels like it's been, oh yeah, okay, go on.
So I can't decide if this was brilliant counter-programming to Infinity War or not, because I remember when the first Ant-Man came out, it was overshadowed by the controversy of losing Edgar Wright, which kind of just drained the enthusiasm for the film. So, in Age of Ultron came out, it was okay. It got a lot of negative reviews, and then Ant-Man came out, and it was just like, oh, that was fine.
Yeah. I'm gonna talk positive first. I really like Ant-Man. I really like Peyton Reed's Ant-Man, and I was happy that Edgar Wright. I'm one of the few that was happy Edgar Wright left.
Really?
Would you rather want an Edgar Wright studio mandated picture, or do you want Edgar Wright unleashed? And I would choose Edgar Wright unleashed any day of the week. And if they were gonna tamper with his vision to the point where he was not gonna be in it, or like his soul would not be in it, I did not want that film. And I think that would be insulting to his, like, because I think he's one of the most talented filmmakers working today. And so when he left, I like applauded, because I was like, that takes guts, because he worked on it. I remember they announced it like in 2006. So when he left, I was optimistic that he would do something better, which he did. He did Baby Driver. And I was optimistic that Marvel would save it and do something, like basically Han Solo it. But I think Ant-Man's a little better than Han. Anyways.
Yes, Ant-Man's better than Solo.
Ant-Man is better than Solo. What I like about Ant-Man, the first one, is that it feels very inventive, even though it's not as cool as an Edgar Wright version would have been. But I still like, I really like when he like goes into like the drain, like he like shrinks and he's like in the bathroom, and it's like, oh my, like, and it looks very visually stimulating, especially for like a Marvel film, because they say like Marvel films look like they're hot off the press, like generic. And I there's a lot of like inventiveness with Ant-Man, especially when they're falling out of the plane and like the music's playing, which was definitely an Edgar Wright thing that they just kept in there. But you know, I know they took some of his ideas and put it in there. And
they probably used the base structure of his script and then just kind of formed the film around it.
Yeah, and I think Peyton Reed, the director of it, did a good job making a perfectly entertaining film, like a perfectly fine, entertaining film. And I really enjoyed it at the time. Now, Ant-Man and the Wasp, however.
Oh no.
No, it's not. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Like how the Incredible Hulk is fine.
It's got that middling Marvel quality to it. Well, like I'm watching a movie.
Paul Rudd is so smart, yet charisma. Like everyone's smarter than him in the first Ant-Man, right? But yet he's super smart himself and knows how to do things. In Ant-Man and the Wasp, he's like the dumbest character alive. it is literally like Buster Keaton without the physical comedy.
Yeah, they definitely
Yeah.
underplay the fact that he's like intelligent.
Wait, you remember the first one? Like he thinks he's getting away because he's working at Baskin Robbins, and then Baskin
Yeah.
Robbins like Baskin Robbins always finds out.
Yeah.
And this one, there's no Baskin Robbins always finds out. It's Scott Lang's an idiot, and here's how dumb Scott Lang is. And then he always outsmarts the people, but it's never outsmart. It gets lucky. Like he always just gets lucky. He never like. I feel like there's barely any time to use his wits. And there's a certain scene in the film, not going to spoil anything, where a big plot point happens with him, but it's not him doing the work, if you know what I mean. It deals with a family thing, and it's a big plot point that sets up the third act.
Okay.
But he has nothing to do with it because he's just a vessel for the thing to, anyways. And I thought it looked really bland as well. I think the first one I remember thinking, oh, this is a nice looking heist film. This one I thought looked like it had the color palette of steel.
Yeah.
Like it looked very just the color palette of steel.
I think a lot of concrete and like water.
And then Ghost, I'm not gonna say villain. I'm gonna say the antagonist, Ghost, played, I forgot her name, but she was really great in the role. Her costume is concrete color, so like everything has looked very like just
Pasty.
pasty and just not exciting. Even when they like shrink and have like a car chase, like it felt very generic. And I mean, like I thought it was fine. Like it does nothing. I was not offended. I laughed a couple of times. The movie was over, and I just sat there. And then the mid-credit scene happened, and I guessed what was going to happen the moment I saw the first shot, which rarely happens with the Marvel.
I knew exactly what was going to happen in the end credits.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like, but you obviously liked it more than me. It seems like you're a little more like yay.
Here's the problem. Marvel's been on a really good roll lately.
Mm-hmm.
They did Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I loved.
Mm-hmm.
They did Thor Ragnarok, which I loved. They did Black Panther, which everyone loved. They did Spider-Man Homecoming, which is a little divisive, but there's a contingent of people that really love it, and most people walked away from Infinity War really happy.
Yeah.
So the last 5 films of their filmography everyone's basically happy with what they've accomplished.
Especially with especially with like Black Panther. I feel like Black Panther was that moment Marvel's been waiting for, where like, I mean, like, yes, the Avengers was like this huge blockbuster moment where everyone was so happy during summer 2012, but Black Panther, they find like, oh, we have something that's culturally relevant. I felt like, so I think after you have that cultural relevancy, and then you have the sum of all the movies coming together with Infinity War. You got to follow it up with something like Captain Marvel, but instead we got.
I think it's, as I said, I think it's supposed to be counter programming. It's supposed to be lighthearted fun after the big and traumatizing event.
Well, and I love lighthearted fun. Like I'm all about like if your movie is good, it's good. If your movie's but it's just so inoffensive and so just like the first one, like the scenes with like T.I. and like Louis, like remember like Louis tells like 5 different stories in the first Ant-Man that are very like funny and different, something you're not seeing in a Marvel film. Remember he's like my Aunt Bernice, and like you have that like joke, you have like that kind of visual storytelling going on. And for Ant-Man and the Wasp, there's no like, I mean, yes, there's a scene where they go into like Doctor Strange territory with where they go supernova or something.
Yeah.
But it's still, even then, I'm sitting in the theater and like no one like laughed in the theater. I think like a few people kind of did behind me, but everyone just kind of went, yeah. Like it just felt like it was very like a passively aggressive like chuckle. But it wasn't like, I mean, it wasn't bad. Like I will never say it was a bad film.
I will say that I appreciate the fact that there's a goal in the film. Like there's a very logical endpoint where it's like, okay, this is the logical story we need to tell. We need to rescue Janet Van Dyne. So the film builds up to the point where, okay, we need to get this item, yada yada, and then at the end of the film, we're going to send someone down into the quantum realm, rescue Janet, and then bring her back up. I appreciate that the film is constructed around that as just a base structure, because it at least gives them something that everyone is working towards. And the fact that Scott the whole time is just like, guys, I can't be out of the house. I'm literally under house arrest for breaking international law.
Oh, and then you have Randall Park, who's like the FBI agent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So he was like they have to make sure he's older. Yeah. I mean, there's moments and like yeah. I mean, you're right. There is a goal. Like you are correct.
Problem is, it's sloppy. It's very, very sloppy how it sets up that goal and how it approaches it.
It feels like it's like a year or two too late. Like I don't like it's I don't know how to explain it. It's one of those things where it just I don't want to say it's too little too late, but it just feels like he should have done this before Civil War maybe, because it just felt I don't know. There's something about it just feels too little too to me. It felt too little too late. Like I felt like Ant-Man should have already done something else by now, and that's how I felt. Like I just felt like it didn't do anything like how the first the first Ant-Man was nominated for best visual effects, and the first Ant-Man like did better than they hoped, and this one, I mean, it does better than they hoped. But he was in Civil War, which was one of the biggest sequels ever, and then he also has other things going on. So, but it took that long for them to make Ant-Man somewhat more popular, and I still don't feel like I'm on that train yet, where I want to see a third adventure. I know he'll most likely be in the second Infinity War.
Yeah, I think they're going to play the quantum realm as part of their solution to fix to stop the Infinity Gauntlet
yes,
thing.
But
so.
it just feels like a puzzle, like how you almost complete a puzzle, and there's like maybe like 2 or 3 missing pieces on the edge, and you're like, well, it still looks done. I feel like it's a missing edge piece to make it all complete, and I just felt like I could have gone. And I still thought it was a fine movie, but I feel like I could have gone on Wikipedia, looked at like the plot points, and been fine.
At this point, there's not much else to explore with that character's mythos. I mean, Scott Lang is not that deep of a character. You might be able to do something more with Hank Pym because he's interesting.
But in the first one, he's in prison. He's in prison and he gets out of prison. So you have that like he's done and he was a bad guy, not bad guy, but he was doing bad things, but yet he was a good person.
He was like a Robin Hood, like who stole a CEO's company car and then drove it into a pool or something like that.
Yeah, and we never have that kind of it factor with Paul Rudd or any character this time around. Like, yes, it was cool to see like Luis back, but besides that, it just was not as great as I hope. I don't know, not as great as I hope, but like it just felt fine, and I think that's more frustrating to me than it being like bad or like disappointing. It was just kind of there, and I feel like Ant-Man, yes, it's like the weird child in the Marvel universe, but it still doesn't have to be that way. Like Guardians of the Galaxy was supposed to be the movie that people thought would be like the the weird dark horse child of the Marvel family. Instead, it's like their MVP now. And Ant-Man didn't have to be just like the boring addition to like and it's the 20th film, he said, which made me go wow, because it's like turning 21, and instead of going to like a really nice bar, you go to like Chili's or Applebee's. Like it's just like, I mean, yeah, you can like drink a beer now, but you're at Applebee's instead of like at like somewhere better.
That's all the time we have for this segment. You can join us for the final segment where we'll be getting his movie recommendation for the week. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the final segment. We're going to hand things over to Garrett now for this week's movie recommendation.
Hello. For this week's movie recommendation, I'm going to recommend a movie that I didn't like that much at first, but then I started to love, and that film is Sicario. It's one of those films where I went into it thinking it was going to be a one way, and then when it was just, on a lot of it, I thought was style over substance, and I just didn't like it at all the first time. I thought it was overhyped. I thought Benicio del Toro was fine. I thought Emily Blunt was fine. But I thought Roger Deakins, all he did was show off how great his camera was the whole entire, and it's about like it's about like the U.S. trying to intervene with like the Mexican cartels, and I just thought it was very boring, very flat, just not much there. And then a couple months ago, I rewatched it in 4K, and I in my comfort of my own house. And have you like watched a movie where you're like, God, I was so dumb, I was so wrong? Sicario is one of the best movies I think I've ever seen, because the third, I think it was the third time I watched it, and the things about it which make it interesting. It's a woman who is being in this world of like men that just want to take on the Mexican cartels, and they want to do it like not by the books, but she's all by the books, and you just see like how like, and then the issue is they're right but they're not right. It's that gray area, and you see how she takes this world of like brutality. and how she's trying to like find the right way to do it. But it's so much more than that. And then the director, I'm gonna say his name wrong, so don't laugh at me. Denis Villeneuve?
I think it's Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
I don't speak Canadian, so.
Well, I've said his name like 4 different ways, and people have like corrected me each time. So I'm just gonna say Denis. It's his first name. I know you're not supposed to say his first name.
I can't even spell it. Like,
well, he did one of my favorite films of all time, which is Arrival, and I was like, this is a man that knows how to tell a story. This is a man that has a soul. This is someone I just need to watch all his work. And then I was like, but he did Sicario, which I hated. And then I rewatched Sicario, and now I can't tell what's a better film. Like Arrival has a special place in my heart, but Sicario is this film that could have been just your generic action film, and it's one of the best films about, I don't want to say the human condition. That sounds way too pretentious, but it's one of those best films I've seen about how do we operate in this world that we're put in. What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong way to do things? And are we that too high and mighty to accept that maybe the right way is the wrong way, if that makes any sense? I know I'm like talking in circles here, but when you really love something, it's hard to pin down why you love it so much.
Did you see the sequel?
Yes, I did see the sequel, which, if you thought I was mean about Ant-Man, so Sicario Day of the Soldado, which means Hitman Day of the Soldier, is probably top 5 most misguided films I've ever seen. I don't want to say bad. It's just very misguided. And like the ending, can I say a spoiler or no spoiler?
We got to wrap up.
Okay.
So.
Anyway, Sicario is like The Godfather, and Sicario is basically Sicario 2 is like Ant-Man and the Wasp, but worse.
Okay, that's all the time we have for this episode of the show. If you like the show, you can find more episodes of the show on the Groupthink Productions YouTube page. You can follow me on Twitter at @AntisocialCritI, and that's critic without the C at the end. And you can find more of my written reviews at Geeks Under Grace. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Anytime.
All right, have a good day, everyone.
Great news. I found us an audition.
Morning, Gloria.
Wait, you got what?
I found us a posting for an audition for this really cool sounding indie drama being made by this eccentric, outsider, artistic type.
You did? Where'd you find it?
Craigslist? Look, it'll be fine. I've done gigs like this before. We shoot in a few weeks, you'll get a shot at a big role to show off to the casting guys, and I'll get the cash I need to stay in town for another month, okay?